Welcome back to the Dr. Laura Ciel Show.
Welcome back. This is Dr. Laura Ciel, and you are joining me today. We're talking about family relationships, happiness, and moving forward from those difficult moments. I will be interviewing someone new in this second half of the show named Gus Rowe. But first, I'd like to just say that this segment is brought to you by Sarah Yost, a life and business coach for soulful and creative entrepreneurs who want to create a mission-fueled life on their own terms. You can find her at www.sarahwagneryost.com, and that is SARAHWAGNERYOST. Welcome back. I want to welcome Gus Rowe. Welcome to the show, Gus.
Hi, Laura. Thanks for having me here. I really appreciate you having me on today.
Oh, well, I look forward to this. Gus he's had a previous career as a commercial banker and has done some work in the family farming business for a while, but he would describe himself right now as a mentor, a writer, a life coach. And Gus is on today. You know, he's when he was 13, tragedy struck his family with the sudden death of his mother due to a horrific farm vehicle accident. And he's also experienced some really difficult shifts and changes in his life and in his family's life in about 4 years ago. Is that right, Gus?
That's correct.
Can you talk about a little bit about what was going on in that period around 2008, I believe you said?
Okay, 2008. Yeah, I didn't know if you were going to want to talk a little bit about my that mother's death. You know, you already alluded to that. But yes, back in 2008, there was an ending that I reached there. I had a severe substance abuse problem. I am an alcoholic. That was something that transpired over a number of years. And in my career as a banker, I was involved as a senior loan officer for an organization for over 20 years. I managed a farm that had about 4,000 acres. I was also a single father of two. I wore a lot of hats, and my release, my outlet on weekends initially was alcohol, and it became worse and worse over time. And it started getting dramatically worse in early 2007, and then by 2008, it just the bottom fell out.
Now, was this something that you had experienced earlier on in your life, or did you start really having problems and becoming an alcoholic later?
No, it wasn't really something that was a really huge issue until probably about 2005, 2006. You know, alcohol was always present in my life. You know, just like a lot of us, you know, in high school and college, you know, you dabble in, you know, beer with your buddies, and it was weekend kind of thing. And as the years went by, it grew into something worse and worse and worse. They say it's a cunning, baffling, powerful disease, and it creeps up on you. And I call it a disease, and I want to emphasize that it is a disease, and it does creep up on you, and it just got worse and worse and worse.
And what do you attribute, or do you attribute anything that was happening in your own life, in your family situation? Do you attribute any of what was going on to the intensity in your alcoholism?
Well, I think one of the things that occurred was in 2006. Up till that time, I'd had primary custody of my children. I was divorced in 2000 and was granted residential custody at the time, and was working at the bank full time, also farming, as I said. My children were with me that whole time. And in 2006, after a move that I made from my hometown, a little town in Kansas, to another town, they went to a new school, and they didn't like it. After they got out of school that year, they decided to go back home with their mother. So it was about that time, I guess you could call it was like, okay, no longer did I have my children. I didn't have that responsibility. Mm-hmm. I was no longer in farming. I'd let that go the year prior. And so it just increased rapidly about that time. This was in 2006 and early 2007.
And can you identify what was going on as far as your feelings, your thoughts at that time when so much was changing?
Well, I don't know if there was a lot of pain involved. I was trying to bury it. I was self-medicating thinking that, okay, I'm just going to be able to fix this problem myself. You know, I think for me, Laura, it kind of goes back to what happened when my mother passed away. After that, my family just kind of fell apart. You know, we didn't have a lot of support systems back in the early 70s. We're on our own. And I think what happened was I never really let her go. It took a long time for me to realize that. It wasn't until after I recovered in 2008 from my disease that I began to realize the significance of her death. And I think what happened for many years is that I was trying to control everything around me. I wanted to fix everything around me. I thought, well, if I can't have her, I'll be able to just fix things. And so when this issue came up with the disease, I hid it. I denied it. I put on the smiley face, and I maintained. I did really good at my job. I did really good with my family. Considered, at the top of my profession. But I think what happened is that, because I was trying to control things, I was living a life of lies, and it got to the point where once that was stripped away, once my pride was completely stripped away, I was left more or less naked, as it were. And when that happens, when you lose your pride and you become very humble, it was an extremely humbling experience. It was a very tragic period of time in my life in 2008, where I lost almost everything, and literally almost my life 3 times from seizures. I lost my home. I lost my job, a job that I'd held for over 20 years. The chairman of the board of the bank had stood behind me for many years because he saw something great in me. But it came to a point where they just said, look, we can't do this anymore. And so, and then I got in trouble with the law because of the drinking. And like I said, once you're stripped down and you don't have anything left, you really do it. It's gut check time. And that's when I opened up my heart to the Lord. I knew that there was something that I had to have back in my life. Through the program, through AA, I was able to find that over time, and then it just kept growing and growing. So I call that date June 5th, 2008, which is 4 years ago, was the last time I had alcohol in my system. And since then, it's just been like a rocket ship ever since. It's just been coming out in geysers in my writing and what I try to do with my life and helping others.
Well, it's interesting that the third question I talked about earlier on today is, are you ready to let go and open up? And I think you really just spoke to that in the sense of letting go of the past, of not only what was happening in the near past, but also with your mother's death when you were so young as well, and really opening up to the possibilities. So I love that you really illustrated that fantastically. You hit sounds like the lowest point was 4 years, about 4 years ago, right? Right.
From June 5th, 2008 to November 10th, 2008, I'll just say it blunt, outright. My home was a 270-foot concrete and steel cage, 158 days, because at that point, when you get a third DUI in 13 months for a man who had no more than a parking ticket for the previous 25 years, was at the pinnacle of his profession as a farmer and as a father, it strips you down to nothing.
Yeah, literally and figuratively, huh? And 158 days.
158 days. After I came out of that, I went into a inpatient program for 6 months, and then I was on outpatient for 6 months. I was on probation for 2 years. They released me from the outpatient program 3 months early. They released me from probation a year early. The lady that was my probation officer said, my Lord, Gus, she says, you are doing so good. She says, I've got to let you go. You definitely need to move on with your life, and I know you want to move back to California. So, it just, like I say, I grabbed onto that second chance, third chance, whatever you want to call it, and I just embraced it. And I've lived my life in a way where I try to live it in the moment. The past is gone. I tell people a lot of times, if you have regrets, it means you didn't learn a damn thing.
That's great. So, we have about 2 minutes before the break, and I really want to ask you what would you say if you had an opportunity to go back and give yourself advice at this difficult moment? What would you say to yourself? before you got into that 158 days in the cell?
That's a very difficult question to answer. You're asking me to go back to a time when the man I am today is not the same that existed 4 years ago.
Okay, so if you had an opportunity to give advice to someone in that type of situation, someone else who might be listening right now and experiencing some of the things that you experience, what 2 things would you say to that person?
If you're talking about hardship or pain in general or substance abuse or whatever, I think that's a broad spectrum when you talk about pain. But there's 2 things I could say, and that would be in the area of forgiveness and acceptance. People don't realize just how powerful forgiveness is, a tool that can be, but it extends beyond forgiving others. Most of the time people think of the word forgiveness, they think about forgiving others. I'm also talking about ourselves, and it sounds counterintuitive to most people, but it truly is a huge, huge thing. And the other one that is really big is acceptance of our situation, our life as it is at this very moment. That's something that's I tend to see that in other people it's very difficult for them to conceptualize or wrap their head around that whole acceptance issue.
And Gus, I want to hear more in the next segment about how you've used this to help other people, so stay with me, and we'll be